Hello folks, another video blogging or vlogging post tonight because today was Good Friday and therefore crazy busy day at work because a lot of people were doing their Easter shopping, plus the store is not open on Easter Sunday, so that means the people that normally would do their shopping on Sunday get to do it earlier in the weekend, so that made the crowd extra numerous and extra, you know, lots of extra stuff this week. Or today at least. Lots of Easter cookies and Easter cakes and Easter candy and hams. I don't know, I lost count of all the hams that I bagged today. It was like, I won't exactly say every cart had a ham in it, but at least every other cart had a ham in it, so my back and my arms are a little tired from hoisting hams, although, personally, if I had to choose between bagging hams and bagging turkeys, I'd rather bag hams because they got that nice flat side to them, so you can just kind of stick them down in the bag and they sit there. You know, they're good little woogies. They stay in their bag. Not like turkeys, which are like trying to bag oddly shaped frozen bowling balls. So you get them in the bag and they kind of, if you don't get them just right in the shopping cart, they kind of booger around and they sometimes will roll out of the bag. I kid you not. So that was easier to take care of. But, Christ was carrying the cross on Good Friday. I've been lugging hams. Unite my sufferings to his. Not that it's really sufferings, but, you know, the stress of it is. Because I don't do well. I don't do well in crowds, and I don't do well where there's a lot of people coming and going and toing and froing. So that's what makes my job so stressful, especially for me. But yeah, like I say, it's a good company to work for, so it balances it out. You know, they understand that I've got my limitations, and you know, my bosses are conscientious. You know, my boss and my supervisors, you know, they see if I'm getting a little frazzled, they'll, you know, take me off the registers for a while and let me do overstock, which I don't mind doing because, you know, you get to walk around a bit and put things back where they belong and straighten things out. So unfortunately, I did not do that today because it was just so crazy busy. I mean, we had every register open most of my shift this afternoon, so that meant I was going. But oddly enough, it was mostly small orders because, like I said, a lot of people were picking up their Easter dinner stuff, so it wasn't like they were doing a full shop, although there were quite a few people that were. So it was a bit of a mix. So unfortunately, I came home and I sort of crashed in bed, so I will crawl into my covers if work has been really rough and stressful. So, crawl into the blankets, put on my earbuds, and listen to the audiobook of the definitive edition of American Gods, which I got some weeks ago and decided, okay, this is a good time of year to start listening to this. So, been listening to that, and it's one of those where they have several different actors reading the different voices. And I'm really liking the guy who does Shadow's part. He really sounds like how I imagine Shadow's voice would sound. You know, just kind of, you know, deep and thoughtful. I've always liked Shadow. He's one of my favorite Neil Gaiman characters because he's, you know, he's a very complicated character. You know, even before we find out who he really is. You know, he's an interesting guy. He's the kind of guy I honestly would like to know, you know? I mean, you know, he might look big and scary, but he's a big softy underneath, you know? I can see why Laura calls him Puppy. And also, another thing that I like about this is Neil Gaiman himself reads the Coming to America chapters, where he's kind of takes a little break from the main story and talks about, you know, different gods and entities and how they came to America and the people that believed in them and brought the stories over here and ultimately brought them over here. So, I honestly, American Gods is one of the first of Neil Gaiman's books that I read through for, you know, front to back, cover to cover, and I just fell in love with it from just, you know, just the early chapters onwards, because he takes all these mythologies, all these mythic figures, and he mixes them in. And honest to God, this guy, even though he's, you know, he's British, he's from England, I think he ultimately, he in this book, he ultimately touches on some things about the United States of America, and just some things that those of us that live here are maybe a little too close to it to see it. I mean, he has a certain amount of objectivity, so he's able to see the things that we might not be able to see, like the observation that the United States is not one big country. It's really more like a lot of little countries. It's just that we're, united by the greenback and McDonald's. So, and reading that line, it was like, oh, he's really onto something. Because seriously, you go to different parts of the country. Not that I've done a whole lot of traveling, but even if you just go to different states that are close by each other, Maine is not like Massachusetts. New Hampshire is not like Vermont. Rhode Island is not like Massachusetts. They're all different. Even though New England does share a lot of things in common. I mean, we've got a lot of our heritage, a lot of the seafaring stuff, and a lot of our spooky stuff. Yeah, you can't swing a cat in New England without hitting some place that has some ghost story about it. So, but still, each state has its different character to it. Each state is different in its own way, and there's different regional accents. Even in Massachusetts, the Boston accent is not completely uniform all across the state. I mean, you go out to the western part of the state, it's like the accent kind of softens, and it's still the pak the ka sound, but it's more like a pak the ka almost. It's softer. It's different. I think there's even from city to city. I mean, the accent that you find in Revere, i.e., even that's a little different from what you'd find in Boston, even though the cities are kind of close to each other. So, and also, it's nice to see somebody using a lot of mythic figures that kind of don't get a lot of airtime in a lot of fantasy stories. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Neil Gaiman, is that he touches on the overlooked mythologies, the overlooked gods, I mean, sure, Odin gets a lot of airplay, but still, he's such a complex figure that in all the adaptations that he appears in, whether it's the Marvel Comics universe or whatnot, he's kind of a shifty character. So he changes across the boards. It's like the fantasy writers aren't done with him, and I'm rather glad for it, because he's one of my favorite figures in Norse mythology. Touching on the Piskies from Cornwall, which you don't hear a lot about. I mean, no, that is not a mispronunciation. The word pixie probably comes out of it, but completely different creature. It's like, these are not your, little things that, wear bluebells on their heads and sit on toadstools. I mean, Piskies are more, they're almost like, they always remind me of leprechauns. And I mean old school leprechauns, not the little guys sitting on a toadstool, hammering little nails into little shoes for fairies. That's cut, and it's and that too. It's like, he brings back old school fairies and old school elves, and they're more like the powerful, glamorous beings that they were than the little things with bluebells on their heads. Not that there's anything wrong with the little things with bluebells on their heads. They just seem less real to me, Maybe it's the druid background in me, because supposedly my father and I, or at least my father's side of the family, is descended from a long line of druids. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but it certainly seems to show up in how much my dad and I are into Halloween, and how much we're into trees. My mother refers to us as the two druids, because we like going on long hikes to see great big pine trees up in the hills and mountains in New Hampshire, or things like that, or bring in ginormous Christmas trees that take up half the living room. Lost my place in my mental book. I don't know. Other things. Cute kids at work today. Little kids helping their mothers pack the bags of groceries into their shopping carts, which is always kind of cute, and I tend to not stop them from doing that, because, or unless they're being bag flingers. Yeah, I try not to interfere when people are packing bags into their own carts. I mean, okay, fine, that's what you want to do. I mean, I have a bit of a system here, and it's a little, let's be careful with putting the heavy things in. I don't want you to squish your own stuff. But it's cute to see the little kids do it because it's like, yo, oh, I'm helping mommy. That's always delightful. Uh, Running out of steam and running out of things to say, so I think I'll stop here for now. If I have anything to, if I come up with anything else, I'll just make another video and add it on as an addendum. So, in the meantime, I hope you all are having, those of you who are Christian are all having a blessed Good Friday. It's hard to say good Good Friday because, number one, that sounds redundant, and number two, it's a sad day. So, you know, try to keep to the spirit in some way, shape, or form. But, you know, hoping it all went well for you folks, and for those of you who aren't Christian, I hope you're having a happy early spring.